Okay, that's fine.
All right. I would like to call to order the Pentucket Regional School Committee business meeting of September 1st, 2020. Roll call: Wayne Adams.
Here.
Joanna Blanchard.
I'm here.
Bill Buell will not be joining us tonight. Emily Dwyer.
Here.
Marie Falzani. Here. Dick Hodges.
Here.
Lisa O'Connor.
Here.
Chris Redding.
Here.
Dina Trotta here.
4.0.
4.0. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move the agenda.
Second.
Madam Chair, if I could add on onto for C after COVID metrics, if we could add on just an update. We know we heard from Mr. Thornton last week about athletics, so I just want to give an update on that and where we are financially just with the impact of COVID on this fiscal year.
Does anyone have any issues with that? Then could I get a motion to amend the agenda to add update on athletics and finance?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Wayne?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
And Dina, yes. Okay, could I please have a motion to approve the minutes from the business meeting of August 18th, 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Emily?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina, yes. We have subcommittee updates. Finance committee, any updates?
No.
No. Teaching and learning accountability?
Nothing new.
Okay. Communications?
So I was supposed to attend a workshop through MASC yesterday, but I had another meeting at the same time, so Marie actually attended it.
Oh, nice.
I'm gonna put her on the spot for just to briefly go over a couple of high-level things of it, because she shared that with me earlier, and I thought there was some good information coming out from that workshop.
Yes, it was really well done. There was Chris Horn, I think I've seen him at the November conferences, and he's spoken before, he was very well done. And it was all about getting out the message in the most clear and succinct way possible about what's going on. And the highlights I took from it was that he said to send information out in chunks, meaning like hit transportation, hit, drop off and pick up area, the flu shot, different things like, and do one-page printouts, he called them. Just information very clearly written. This is what you need to know. And maybe a calendar that lists the cohort days, remote cohort, whatever. But overall, I thought it was great. And it was about staying positive and getting the message out and being all on the same page, school committee, superintendent, the district as a whole with the community. I took some notes, so I can share those at a later time.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Awesome, thanks, Marie. Also policy?
Yep, we met this morning at 9 o'clock in the green room, and we went over some more of the COVID policies.
That we will be getting to today? Oh, no.
No.
That will be next week, right? Or 2 weeks. Okay, great. We had no public comment for this meeting. People were supposed to get in touch with Mary Ann before 9:30 if they wanted to make a public comment. So, and going forward, that will be our procedure. If people want to do public comment, then they have to let Mary Ann know so that we can let you in, because we're doing this on a different platform than the Zoom platform. So, and now we have new business and we have policies. So Marie.
So these policies were brought to our attention from Mass, and then Dick, Lisa, and myself worked together to roll in language from our back to school plan and practice. So We want to start with MA?
Okay, I'm assuming everyone went through them, and can I get a motion to approve policy MA, student assignments to schools?
Move student assignment to schools.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Here.
Okay.
So I know that the prescribed from MASC, but I actually have questions about this. So this policy make it so that students who move into another town the year may not be able to attend their local community, their local elementary school in their town. And that concerns me because I think, and I know that the cases would be very rare because hopefully there is some room in the number of classrooms and the cohorts and stuff like that. But if this policy, if I'm reading it correctly, if I move in with a family and cohorts in the third unit, does that mean they get sent to West Newbury, but we live in Groveland? And that I'm responsible for transportation. I get what it's getting at, but I think it's very unfair to the families who may move in during this tumultuous time.
So I think first, it's not a guarantee if you move in that this is what's going to happen, but it provides flexibility that if there's a class and there's already, and we're in hybrid, and there's 11 or 12 students in that class, they don't have the capacity to take more. And we know particularly in some of our schools where there's just 2 teachers, not a lot of options. We went through in April, and of course, we gave the seats that were vacant, that we had available, and we made sure that there was plenty of buffer because we didn't know what was going to happen. I think that was a smart move. I don't think, we'll find out more by the end of this month, what the numbers actually are present. I don't see that as being a problem. I guess it could happen. But it all really depends on what numbers show up on next Thursday and Friday. Or even more important, 14 when things get started. I mean, I know Groveland, I think, had an influx of either first graders or second graders. But most of those moves have happened now or in the process of happening. If there was a sudden influx in October, I guess I could see it happening.
Well, I guess, we still see all the homes for sale popping up and they go under contract pretty quickly. So I guess my concern is just that, I want to make sure that we're not hurting families who are moving in during this period. I understand that perhaps once they're in a different school, then if things miraculously get better and we're back to full, they would probably go back to their hometowns. But then you're asking, especially elementary kids, to make a group of friends through a mask and then go with another group of friends who they've never met. It's just, if we put the student first, I think I'd be more comfortable, and I feel that this doesn't necessarily do that.
So if you have 2 classes that are full, like on A and B, they're at 12 and 12, that's the amount of space they could fit. There's not a tremendous amount of options for that student other than to go remote. Because you can't go and hire another teacher for one kid, or if you hire another teacher, then you're hiring a teacher, and now those classes, instead of being 12, 12, and 12, you're now at 8, 8, and 8, which is wonderful. But we have other classes that are just as full. And I don't know that there's a great way around that.
I don't think we have much flexibility with this. Once
I
a
don't
class is maxed out, regardless of what school, we're stuck.
Well, but if it were not COVID time, we'd make room for those students and we.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the space, right, we don't have the space restrictions. It depends, so much depends if if this is a high school student, if this is kindergarten first or second, like right now, are like at early elementary, we know in 2 of our schools, those flex teachers that we use to help keep numbers down and provide more literacy instruction in small groups, 2 of those have been assigned to teaching positions that were vacated by teachers who were doing remote teaching only. So those positions are already, we would be able to accommodate that at normal time, but now those don't exist now in 2 of the schools, and potentially in the third.
Then I guess I would perhaps, as a school committee member, request that we get information on the class populations by cohort in some form. I'm sure you have just summary level that probably can identify age groups or grade levels that might come into problems like that, so that when administration has to solve some of those problems, like, we're aware that, okay, this is a problem right now.
It's a problem if people come
If
in.
people are moving, if we're getting high on the class size numbers for the cohorts, and we find out that a student is moving in.
Yeah.
Like, I would
I
personally.
mean, so are you want to,
I'd be
would you
really
want that
mad if
list?
I moved into a town and then
Yeah,
I was told, oh, because of COVID, your kid has to go to Groveland.
Would you,
But I live in West Newbury, or one student.
so are you wanting the
I
end of
don't know if you
September,
split
at the end of
family.
September, you're looking for those numbers?
Yeah, just the numbers, like, are we maxed out at a lot of grade levels at schools or not, or
That's easy.
if it, that I think we would be keeping track of in regular times, if, all of a sudden Bagnall has 24 kids per grade and somebody's moving in. I would like to think administration would let the school committee know
Yeah, that's easy.
that's something you're keeping a watch on.
So can we move the question?
If you
And-
move the question, we have to vote on moving the question.
Oh, well, then let me take back moving thank you for moving the question.
I have no further discussion.
I just think our hands are tied, that once a class maxes out, whoever that is, whether it's unfortunate or not, and if things get better, then yeah, maybe they can go back to their town schools. So I think we have to be flexible enough to be able to keep everybody safe.
Well, but I also think this is guidance. I don't think it's something that's dictated at this point. So it's,
I think that for almost every situation, like we try to do whatever's best for the child, every time.
That's been number one.
Right.
Right, and so I don't see us stopping that practice. I think we'd try to find some creative way to solve that. But it's also when we've
But if
had
it's
students that have come here around to look at the building, to walk around. And you tell them, here's what we're doing, here's what the options are. And when they say a grade level, we can say, okay, well, this is what that looks like. And we did this summer, we've had those conversations, and, it helps those parents make a decision what they want to do. We'll be flexible, and we'll try to find the solutions, but there's, some things are more challenging now than what they were in the past.
and I ask that it just, before we get an angry email from a parent in a situation, that we kind of have a heads up as to what may transpire, or
Sure, that's easy.
that's it.
Okay, any more discussion?
You say before you get an angry email? I'll give you the warning now.
You haven't gotten one
Well,
yet?
no, regarding this specific issue, like, if all of a sudden a family comes in and they're told this, before we get an email saying, I moved into this district, blah, blah, blah. I want to understand that, this is the issue, and these are the things that we try to work on, like, just, I know that's happening, but I want to know when it happens.
Anyone else? No? Okay. So roll call vote. Joanna?
Yeah.
Was that yes? Lisa?
It was yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay, Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina? Yes. Our next policy is policy MB, school calendar. Motion?
Move school calendar.
Second.
Any discussion?
So,
We-
on a similar, like, we haven't approved the new school calendar yet. Is that on the upcoming agendas?
Should be. Yes.
How is the new school calendar going to look? Can we have some heads up?
Well, it's the same, well, I don't want to say the same. We have 3 days of professional development that we can still utilize. For a full calendar, we'll put those probably just at the end of the school year, knowing that if we have to have a transition one way or the other, we can use those days within the school year. But it's essentially the calendar that we started out with, the 10 days or 11 days of PD to start. Shrunk down to 170, so we maintained all the same vacations And then all of that information remains. What really changed was those student days at the beginning have become professional development days. And then we do have those, the Tuesday of Election Day, that is now a non-work day. It was originally going to be a professional development, but we moved that to the front of the year. So we now have those 3 days left that we can use in case there's a transition.
So are you talking like the Friday before Columbus Day weekend?
What's the date of that?
I don't know. I just know that sometimes that was used for professional development, a Friday before a long weekend.
But I think we removed some Friday early release
yeah.
days in the first half of the year.
Yes, yeah.
So kids have the in-school portion on Friday.
Yeah, that's thank you, Mr. Conway. We had periodic or early release days on Friday for professional development, but with us being in a hybrid, we're shifting away from that for now until we see how things progress.
Okay, so is the school committee going to be approving of that new schedule at the next September meeting?
Yes, we'll have a schedule, a new calendar for us to approve,
When,
Okay, thank you.
when is the next meeting?
in 2 weeks.
15th, which is then we're approving a calendar after the school year has started for students.
Well, it's already been approved, it's just being edited.
It's being edited,
Well,
yeah.
it's not, there are significant changes to what was approved originally.
We're gonna have to do some of these things on the run as these challenges hit us, just deal with it and
No, but I
continue.
think the calendar is a pretty important one that,
Oh, I agree.
Like I said, I'm just concerned about people that have maybe, they have the calendar, it's been approved, they've made reservations or whatever for long weekends, knowing that their kids are going to have an early release or what have you. And now we're just kind of throwing a wrench into it.
Yeah, Ms. Napa might be able to verify, but I believe on the district website under the calendar, it says this calendar may change or something like that.
Yes, and it was also, Brent helped me do some of the editing to date, which has been posted, and it does also include.
It was revised on August 8th.
We can absolutely go ahead and put together a draft calendar that we can send out to everyone in the community with the changes. And
And
post
then-
post that up there with the exact same message that this is, again, going to be subject to change.
Okay.
How things move forward.
Now, can you post that without the school committee approval?
It's a draft.
If it's a draft,
Okay.
does it say draft?
well, this
No.
one says
Well,
revised August 8th, 2020.
I guess we're just passing a policy that says we have to approve it, but yet we don't have one that's been approved recently.
So what do you,
Well, this says may suspend or revise the school calendar. And,
With the approval of the school committee.
yeah, with the approval of the school committee, and that hasn't happened yet, and if that happens in 2 weeks, I'm fine. I don't know about the rest of you.
does anyone else have anything to add here? One way or the other? No?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree when it says with the approval to put stuff out there and just, I mean, that's not a habit I want to get into for sure.
It was updated on August 8th, which was 3 weeks ago. I don't know, how should we?
Yeah, I
proceed?
mean- I can put a draft up and you could take a look at it and officially vote on the 15th. I could send it out to the community. If you want to put together a meeting next Tuesday to go over the calendar, we certainly could.
I'm wondering if there's decisions that will need to be made for sports before the 15th as well.
So that we won't know. We'll talk about that a little bit.
So should we table this school calendar policy? Is my question.
Well, no, I think it just, in my opinion, the fact that we're approving a policy that says we're supposed to approve the calendar and we haven't done that yet is where I find. So we can approve this, but then we can approve the policy, but then I think we need to approve the new calendar sooner rather than later.
Okay, then I guess we have a meeting next week to approve the calendar.
Oh, boy.
Would that, would that work for everybody here?
No.
It's the Tuesday after Labor Day.
No, I know.
I'm not able to be here next week.
Okay. So I guess we have to wait? Or do we approve this policy now?
We have members missing occasionally. I don't know that-
Is what we're approving tonight, as far as the new calendar is concerned, is the reflection of 170 days, 935 hours at the secondary level, and 170 days and 850 hours at the elementary level.
That is in the calendar, right?
Yeah, I think that's what we can vote on tonight. And then if we can't get together next week, then on the 15th, you put that draft in front of us and we go thumbs up, thumbs down.
That sounds like a great idea. Dick. So we will move, so we're going to vote and on MB school calendar. Emily? Lisa?
You're on mute, Emily. We try to see.
I'm waiting for Emily.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry. Yep, I'm in favor.
Okay. Lisa?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina? Yes. Now on to policy MH, job descriptions. Can I have a motion to approve?
Move job descriptions.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So I actually didn't initially have this question, but I do have it now. Do we actually have a listing of job descriptions for available? And I know it's a loaded question.
It is. We have a whole stack full of job descriptions of what we post up for positions. And just as an example, I think even some of the coaching positions, when Mr. Thornton and I were speaking yesterday, there's things we have to tweak and add in those because of it's during COVID times.
So we have a job description of remote teacher that we're still discussing with the PAT, but it's been presented to those who are remote support teacher. And then one for those working in the Florida virtual school. I mean, even the job description of special educators who are working remotely are also at varying rates. Depends upon what their assignment is. But we do have a general overview of what it means to work remotely in the structure of the system.
But do COVID changes have to be made to every job description, or has somebody gone through?
No.
And identified, like, I guess my concern is we're putting these policies in place that then actually make us have to actually act on it. And I just want to make sure that we're actually going to act on it, or
It's
have
just-
acted on it
so-
before we vote.
So I think this gives like something that already exists, gives us the ability to say, because we're in COVID, we need to add this description onto there. And anytime we do that with a teaching position or any of the bargaining units, you know, that could be an impact bargaining situation. So, because it's shifting their work environment, but I like the coaching one, the stipends is a good example because it changes part of what they may have to do in their capacity. And if it was a current, so when spring started, some of the coaches, we had to sign those papers, but we would have had to go in and say, hey, these are now that things has happened, these are things you're gonna have to do. I think there's a whole, we talked through a lot of these we're in the process of talking through a lot of these with the PAT about what it is that's going to be different.
Well, then the line in here that says the superintendent will inform the school committee of any such changes, is that like meant to be officially, like in a meeting, to be voted on, or just? I just worry that some of the policy language we're putting into place is setting us up for not following our own policies. And I don't want that to happen. I'm not at all reflecting on the work of the policy committee. I'm just making sure that we're not putting ourselves into a corner.
Well, I think that would be an agenda item. The superintendent will inform the school committee of any such changes. And it could be a list of 3 to 5 changes that are impacted by different organizations or different clubs or different teams.
Yeah, we don't need to approve it.
And there's no, it doesn't say it has to be approved. He just has to inform us.
That's part of our communications back and forth.
Yeah, I would think subtle changes wouldn't necessarily come to you, but for instance, to view the job description of the remote support teacher would be an appropriate thing for us to bring to the school committee so you can see that. Or if the job description of the assistant superintendent were to change because of COVID, that he would inform you of.
So then we would expect things on the agenda coming up. It could be more work to do.
Yeah, I mean, if they were major changes, if they're subtle and the superintendent asks a particular person to take on something, so that may not be something that's brought to you. But if it's more substantial, I think that certainly stands to the reason you would hear about it.
So I don't know if the thought is for anybody watching, or we're not saying each teacher, we're gonna go and change their job description. We know we've had the conversations about what teachers, what they're gonna be doing on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday. And what they're, like Mr. Conway just said, the remote component, those folks just got their kind of description about what that's gonna look like. So those major changes, obviously, we try to let everybody know what's going on, because if I was a parent and I was trying to find my teacher and they weren't in that capacity, the remote teacher wasn't there, it would make sense that they weren't there if I was assigned to a teacher and all of a sudden they're remote. If I was informing them, then they would know that that teacher had shifted into a remote, so they're not going to be in their classroom teacher anymore.
Is there any more discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Joanna?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina, yes. Then we have policy MI, students at risk.
Move students at risk.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call vote. Joanna?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina, yes. Policy MJ, privacy of students.
Move to see if students.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So at the beginning of the year, we typically get forms as parents that we have to, either we and the students or just the parents have to sign off for acceptable computer use, and are your children allowed to be photographed? I don't know for certain, but like, is this policy actually going to be in some of those permissions that we're gonna be sending out?
Mr. Conway, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, the policy obviously not being approved yet, hasn't been inserted yet. But we do have what would be like an agreement about digital platforms. So and it largely is about remote learning, but whether a student's participating in the group or so we do have one that reflects on we sort of put one together last spring very quickly, Now we have another one that's been revised a little bit. I think actually our policy committee today saw it a little bit this morning in part of the broader discussion around policy, but it's one that we do intend to provide to families. It won't be in the handbook per se, but it'll be a separate sheet that we provide.
So, and this has come up before, we get parent questions about this, why aren't we recording classrooms for the remote students? Well, there's like, right here in the policy, if you have it in front, they don't have it in front, but there's laws prohibiting the recording of individuals without their permission. And that applies to children and goes on a little bit more. We know, like you mentioned, Ms. Redding, at the start of the year, if you don't want your child to be photographed or recorded, you sign that paper, it goes in, and there's a list of all the students who. So if that's and we have, that absolutely happens in every single school. So in those instances, those would never be allowed to be recorded. There's reasons for that, right? And that's just for the child's piece of it. There's other parts that have to do with teachers as well. But yeah, what Mr. Conway just talked about, what we saw this morning a little bit in the policy meeting, was a whole checklist of these are all the things that you're going to be agreeing to do. And then that's up to each family if they'll allow that to happen.
So the point of this policy is the rights to privacy held by students and their families shall not be abridged by the Pawtucket school system. That's really what we're voting on.
But parents can give permission through that beginning of the year. Like, I'm thinking that sheet that gets sent out, hopefully
So
will be changes.
what we're asking for is parents to acknowledge what the rules and expectations are, and that if they are participating in any sort of video-related instruction, whether it be from their house, whether it's from school, whatever it may be, that they have acknowledged what the clear expectations are and what they are and are not allowed to do. That's what this is really about. So, you know, in the end, you can't ask parents to sign their rights.
Right. But they can give permission just like they would for photographs.
Yep, they can.
Yes, exactly.
So,
And I think it's important to know, if we were a class, if my parents said, no, this couldn't be happening right now. Right, so even if everyone else here said yes, we couldn't be having this right now.
Which does put us in a predicament if someone says, well, why can't we watch what's going on in that class? And you have one student who has said, no, you can't disclose that. Well, we have someone who said they can't. You can't say that either. So it becomes really challenging from that perspective.
And this is a policy we generally have anyway, the privacy of students, but with COVID, they just wanted to make sure that whatever steps we're taking
Still covers it.
it still covers the rights to
Exactly.
privacy, even in COVID.
You don't shed your rights.
COVID does not usurp students' privacy and rights.
Do we have any more discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Lisa?
Yes.
Joanne? Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina, yes. I have one question. For these M policies, once COVID is gone, then these policies, the policies go
We
too?
can vote them out.
Okay,
It's a
just-
pandemic policy.
pandemic policies, all right. So the next policy is MK homeschooling.
Move homeschooling.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say to everyone on the committee, so as a subcommittee, we just basically copied and pasted our homeschooling policy that we approved in April of this year. So that if I were a parent and I was thinking of homeschooling, like get a remote learning or hybrid, and I went to look at the COVID policies to see how whatever decision I had, was affected, that the homeschooling policies are right there. They don't have to go looking for another subcategory of policies. So it's not new language to us. It's the same approved language. It's just we're duplicating it into the COVID policies for easy access.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marie. Any other questions or discussion? Roll call vote. Joanna? Lisa?
Yes.
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina? Yes. Our next policy is policy MK-R, homeschooling.
Move MK-R homeschooling.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Joanna?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yep.
And Dina? Yes. And then our oh no, we have two more. Policy MN, visitors in schools and buildings.
Move visitors in schools and buildings.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Joanna?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina? Yes. And our last one is policy MP, transportation and busing.
Move transportation and busing.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Joanna?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
And Dina? Yes. Okay, Dr. B, new business COVID metrics.
All right. So thank you, Madam Chair. Let me go over and put this up for everyone to see. What I just want to talk about, we've covered this quite a bit. I wanted to update everyone where we were in terms of the metrics that we're using, how we're using them, and conversations that I've had recently. So we know already, we're all familiar with these, right? The red, the yellow, the green, and I'm not going to go over this again. We've all seen this. We're familiar with this. We talked about this. This is actually from August 26th. So you can see Groveland, 43, less than 5. And this, when it's less than 5, you get to stay and unshaded. And is there no change? And I talked a little bit last time about the percent positivity in the last 14 days, because I think that's an important metric. So you have the number of positive cases in the last 14 days. You also have the percent positivity in the last 14 days. And the thought being, when you look at percent positivity, if all of a sudden it's increasing and even if that number stays low, but tests were down, but more people were testing, a higher percentage testing positive, we don't want to wait to get into the yellow or the red. We'll know. Well, this next slide, we talked about as well. And this is what was the focus of my conversation with local health agents last week. And it really is not just a multiple trends of data. Remember, these metrics are designed for every single school district. They're designed for big places, small places. And in regional, when it said that the whole thing about they're going to be sending us updated data, I told you that before. Groveland is our key that we are supposed to key in on. But really, when you're looking at the data, you have to find out we're small enough that we know what the stories are. And that was a big part of our conversation. Like right now, today, as of the last update, next update comes tomorrow. Merrimack is at 0. West Newbury's at 1, and Groveland's at 1. So when we have this meeting, you find out, oh, well, actually that 1 in West Newbury doesn't exist there. Like it's that person had on their identification West Newbury, so West Newbury got that one, but it was, and they live in a completely different town. So that's how, some of those anecdotal stories are really important for us to understand who these people are. So We have a standing meeting now, or I have a standing meeting with the local health agents. We met Diane Dardino last week, or you met her back in March, but we met her again last week. She's on there, Paul Savigny, Claire Walsh, and Deb Ketchen. And it's going to be every Friday. And Friday we picked because it gave us time. When the new data would come out, they would have information that accumulated through the week. We'd have the conversation about what the numbers looked like, how they felt. And we do not, the school, and it's important for everyone to understand, the school district does not have access to who has this and where is this coming from. That's only the public, only the health agents have that information when they're given them. So when they have that information, they'll share it with me if it's pertinent, because the data alone doesn't tell the whole story. If there was a huge increase in one of the towns, you need to look at that, even if it went into the yellow. And if it went into the yellow, why? And if it ends up being that there was a house, the Groveland Housing Authority, if something happened there, there was an outbreak of some sort, then that might hit Groveland in the yellow, but some of those folks might not be connected at all to any of the children in our school district. So it's just them being able to get us that information that ends up being really important. And if there is a big shift in either direction, obviously we'll let everybody know. And you know, so they have more information than we have access to, but those meetings allow them to just fill me in on what the numbers are looking like in their local communities. So my initial thought was, yeah, we have the unshaded, the red, the yellow, and the green, and we have the percent positivity. But in talking with the local health agents, they felt like knowing who those people are, when they know that is much more valuable because it tells the story of what we have to be aware of moving forward.
So did you pick up the information of Groveland this past Friday? Because
Yes.
the previous Friday, I talked to a selectman and it was at 0.
Yep, and then they said just.
So they added 1. Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep. So I think that is, oops. So that's all I have for, anybody have any questions about the metrics?
No, thank you.
All right, athletics update. I'm wearing a mask so everyone can't see me smiling or grimacing, whichever that may be. We were told, Ms. Torrey came by last week and just said, you know, they have a meeting, the MIA was scheduled to meet today. They actually met earlier. They met, I believe it was Friday or this past weekend, to just start putting together, or I guess it was the Cal, to start putting together some guidelines of things they might be looking at. And we spent some time yesterday just talking it through, and at our next meeting, if we need a meeting before, like Chris, you had mentioned earlier, yeah, if something comes up, we need to make a decision, then I'll let you all know. We have to have a meeting. They have a meeting this upcoming Thursday to talk about a lot of questions. The ones that this is just a short list. So first, I'll tell you, the plan, as was stated, is to move volleyball and football to that floating season, which I think is in February. And while that's floating, the plan is right now to run soccer, cross country, and field hockey. And so in doing that, there's a lot of questions, like masks.
Cheer would be moved as well.
Cheering's, so cheering's,
So you get those girls in.
yeah, so, right, well, yeah, so, yeah, cheering got moved, and it wasn't, I don't even know if cheering just got moved. There was something, there was another
Cheering and
organization.
football were the MIAA directed to
And
that.
cheerleading was the MSAA needed to make that decision or something.
MIAA decided that they're moving to that interim.
Okay, I know,
Volleyball, I thought was still on, so that Cape Ann League might have
Cape,
decided.
that is what happened. And I think the Cape, that's why I brought up the other organization that, I think the Cal, I don't know. I wasn't at that meeting, I'm just going to go with what I got, but that they all have to wear masks. So then the question came up, we've passed a policy about masks and wearing masks. So can they wear gaiters? Can they not wear gaiters? That was a question that came up. Locker rooms. So they're saying locker rooms are 50% capacity and being sanitized every single day. Well, we know we're sanitizing classrooms every single day. The locker rooms weren't going to be used. So to clean and sanitize the locker rooms, okay, maybe, but how are we going to monitor the locker rooms?
Would it be easier if the athletes just showered at home
Well, it's not even showering, it's about, so if I'm going to
Changing
change,
for the game,
like, so who's monitoring that? Who's making sure, and certainly we're not gonna put an adult in a position where they're gonna walk through the locker room while children are changing. Temperature checks. So temperature checks, I know I skipped over fans, we'll come back. Temperature checks, it might be a requirement, but who's doing it? And how, is that the coach that's gonna do it? And they have a temperature that they had set at like 100.4, I think it was. But is that a nurse that's coming out to do it every single day? Is it a parent? So if a student is not in hybrid in person that day, and they're at home and they show up, are we just assuming that they're okay because the parent did the check and then?
Who's taping ankles?
So the athletic trainer, which is a whole different.
Could that be the person that
Could be.
you're talking about?
Could be. We're currently potentially looking for an athletic trainer for the fall, if it happens. Fans at games, so the Cape Ann League saying they do not want fans at games. That's wonderful for us to control if we had our stuff here on campus, but we know we use pipe stave, we use Amesbury Sports Park. How do we control that? And is there a consequence when we don't do that? Equity. So if it's A and B in person, and I'm a B student, I'm a cohort B student, and it's cohort A in-person day, how am I supposed to get to practice? And I know we have that happen a little bit in the wintertime, and for golf, where students have to find a way to get there. But how equitable is it if I don't have a way to get to practice? How is that gonna be solved? 10-game schedule is what they have set up. But we have, I think there's 5 teams in the Cal that are remote, and their school committees have to vote whether or not they're going to allow them to play. And some of those school committees aren't meeting until September 15th. The season is set to start September 18th, that Friday. So it's not a tremendous amount of turnaround. Hand sanitizer, we know we get plenty of it, but when are they supposed to sanitize? If I'm coming in and out of a soccer game, do I sanitize on my way in and sanitize on my way out? Do I do it before, after? Sanitizing equipment, that was part of the pieces we said we might have to include in these roles. But sanitizing equipment, I don't want to start spraying something with force of nature, and it has a negative impact on the equipment. So we're not sure exactly what that is. Who's supervising this? And so we know the coaches are out there, and we know officials. So if you have a child that participated in any sports this summer, whether you're playing softball, baseball, they're all wearing masks. And at the beginning, the umpires made sure that everyone was wearing masks. And then by like the third game, that was certainly made sure the players, but they were done with trying to interact with parents and trying to convince parents they have to wear masks, or restricting down the number of people that were there. And then also, what's the role of the school committee going to be on any of these decisions? So there's a lot that the Cape Ann League has to clarify before we're able to move forward. I just, if we're going to give realistic expectations, we got guidance on PPE in summer school, initial guidance in summer school in May. And, we were not able to go through and run summer school with that initial guidance because our facilities couldn't meet the standards that they had set. But we got additional guidance through June. The initial school guidance, as you all know, came out the end of June. And for a month and a half, we've been scrambling, trying to put everything together, and more guidance has come out. It's taken us a month and a half to put together where we are now. We just are getting this information. We got a little bit from Dan, he had more clarification on Sunday. They're trying to turn this around in less than 3 weeks. So I'm not sure. There's questions like Triton might want to come in when they return, or they might their school committee might say, yeah, we'll let our kids play now. There is some questions about our students who are fully remote. Will they be able to participate? I think that I know is a school committee decision that DESE had initially said no, but then they said they were going to leave it up to each school committee. So there's just a lot. There's a lot of questions that are on the table. And as Mr. Thornton finds out more and finds out what the will of the Cape Ann League is, I think that, I'll get you that information. I am a little bit surprised. I know there's reasons why they wanted to stick with the traditional sports. I am a little surprised with the spring being canceled that they didn't go with tennis, cross-country, softball, baseball, sports that there's virtually no contact at all, except for sometimes on base paths, but everybody used to wearing masks, and instead went with field hockey, where they dropped 11 players down to 7, soccer, where you have to stay 6 feet apart. There's a lot of rules and things that have to happen.
How do you play defense 6 feet apart?
That I can't answer. I think
Everybody's now on offense?
I think the one benefit is the one important thing is if it's safe and we can have children being active and being a part of the team, I think that's incredibly important. I think for me, I'd like to be convinced that it's going to be safe. I feel really uncomfortable with getting something like this at such a late time and trying to put something together in 2.5 weeks. We won't even have that. We'll know more on Friday, I think. So the other part I just wanted to talk about was finances. This came up, actually, we were talking this morning, so this is very just last second, but we're curious to look at, we know we got grants for COVID. We know we have expenses because of COVID. So just to look at where that is, and Greg Lebrecht always says, look, we know we're going to be close, but we don't know what the future is going to hold. We don't know what the different shifts are going to be. So here's just numbers. So in grants, we know we had that amount, $755,270 is what we got in grants. Those are all the COVID grants that we got. It's a nice big number. But the number below it's much bigger, at $1,072,202.43. So right now, as of September 1st, and that's an approximate, I don't think that's full inclusive. There are some other things that might add to it. So we know there's an overage right now of about $316,932. I would just remind the school committee that in the spring, we also dipped into overage because we had no money coming in we were paying everybody, and there was no money coming in those revolving accounts. So, the question that I know you get a lot of emails. We've seen emails come in saying, well, why is it that the district isn't able to run a full remote academy? So let me just look at that number for a second, and you'll see the number of teachers. I think, Mr. Conway, 14 teachers we have. It depends. So it's variations because the special education gets involved a little bit. But essentially that ends up being, we're running a hybrid model, and then there's another set of teachers. So all of our regular teachers, if we do it this way, are running a hybrid model. And then you have additional teachers who are running a remote. So having an overage of 316, which is just, again, we haven't opened the doors to students yet. So this is what we've got so far. And so 9 long-term subs. So that is 9 classroom teachers who normally had a class. They've gone out and they have picked up remote. They're running they're touching base with those students who are fully remote so that they have contact every single day. Technology, the Chromebooks and the licensures, PPE, we know that was $115,000. The HVAC, which we get in the HVAC systems, that's in the process of being evaluated. The virtual school, Florida virtual school, SPED support, special education support services, and professional development. We've had to bring in a lot of people who know or have had experience and successfully delivering remotely their curriculum. So that's where that money's gone. Nothing here has been wasted.
Dr. I'll add, and there's 9 long-term subs to cover for the teachers doing remote-only learners. There's actually 14 teachers.
That's right. Sorry.
Doing the remote learning instruction. 5 of them we did not need a long-term sub for. We covered for it because we have less students in the building each day.
And that's reflected right here, exactly what Mr. So we have, so those were the 9. There's still 5 teachers who were in a teaching position who we've had to shift out of their position to meet the needs of what we're doing for hybrid and remote. And those positions right now are vacant. Like, we think we can go without them, but those are empty. And then we know, so we purchased PPE for 3 months. So that was if every student was showing up, we purchased enough PPE for 3 months. We know we're still trying to find, we'll need more PPE after that. So 3 months really gets us probably to 5 months. And then the big question mark still lies ahead of us, and that is when the state budget comes into play, the end of October, start of November, whenever that gets finalized, what will happen to Chapter 70? Our guess is that Chapter 70 will be funded where we wanted it to be. But there are the two other big pieces, circuit breaker and transportation, regional transportation, that it's gonna have to come out of. Not for us, but that they'll take it out of somewhere. The state has encouraged us to don't worry about the money. That's not what I'm a big fan of worrying about the money. I know Mr. LeBrecq is as well. We can't just go and spend what we don't have. We have to have that money. We have to be able to cover those expenses. And we are not in a position in a regional district to go ahead and say, okay, we're going to stop providing certain services to a town. Like, we don't have that option. Our option is to spend the money that we have. And if there's extra expenses, we can't take those on. We can't lay people off because we need those people in order to do all the pieces that we're trying to execute in this model. So it's a interesting financial situation. We are not banking on a financial bailout from the federal government, and I think some organizations, some governments, maybe ours, it is.
Have they offered a reason why it has taken so long? I mean, the very people that are making this decision are taking so long, but none of them have missed a paycheck. I find that incredibly irritating.
Yeah, initially, Mr. LeBrecq, as I recall in the meetings, it had a lot to do with they were waiting for the tax revenue numbers to come in and what they were actually going to get. I thought that was an odd.
I remember when we did it, they said, oh, it'll be coming out. Remember I said, we won't see a state budget till after Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Well, you called it right, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think they're just trying to get a handle on how to project out what now will be.
Well, they've handled it in the past because we've gotten that information sooner at town meetings. But all of a sudden, everything is just slower and slowest.
Yep, I don't disagree. It's a really uncomfortable place to be if you're a regional school district.
Can I just add one thing? I think it's important to note that the prior slide, when he showed you your grant money, your expense money, the grant money's fixed, we're done. The expenses will keep going up.
Right,
So
yeah.
that gap you're looking at, $316,000, not going to get better, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, this one right here. So, right, the only way that grant number changes, is if there's another stimulus or something like that comes in. And we are not banking on that. And the expenses, and again, just to be clear on this, that expenses number is not, obviously it's not going to go down. Doesn't matter what we do, that's going to be where it is.
And specifically, the grants dictate some of the things we can and cannot spend it on.
That's right.
We cannot really spend it on personnel.
Yeah, we can't spend it
And
on
that
salary.
becomes on top of obviously the technology stuff that we need, which some of it we may end up using from now on, period.
So I guess,
But the supplies, materials, and then the people, the additional people to make this work.
So we're only going to come up with this additional 316 plus, because we know it's going to go up.
sorry, can you say that again, Lisa?
So we have a shortage of 316,000. And that number is probably going to increase. So do we have to go back to the towns for that money because the state and federal government probably
We do
isn't
not
gonna
have to go back to
pay
the
into it.
towns. This is based off of what we budgeted. There are accounts we can pull to cover that. But I think, so we did that. That's what happened in the spring, right? We went over. So we had to pull from other accounts, and it's just, as you know, you can go to the well so many times, and that well is becoming less full and less full, and we just don't want that well to dry up.
Yeah, I think I might also say that when they came up with their guidance on chapter 70, we're going to lose $80,000 there. I think they're just gonna level fund everybody from last year. And I'd echo what the superintendent said. They can't come up with a number because I'm sure they're sitting up in Beacon Hill horrified. Because they've had no money coming in, they've been paying all of this money out. And our 316,000 to us at this point looks like probably 3 or 4 or 5 billion to them. And they know that it's going to get bad, they're gonna have to cut a lot of programs, and they're just delaying it. And Mr. Hodges here is gonna love this one. Until after the election, they're not gonna do anything.
Everything will be A-okay by November 4.
Yep, you'll see a budget, like I said, around Thanksgiving, after the elections are all over, because they do not want to show their hand right now, because it's not pretty.
Yeah, and I just think it was good to get out there so you all can see where that is. So this is the impact of COVID right now. It was wonderful for us to report those grants, but I thought you need to see those expenses, because I know you get messages like I get that say, well, hey, we need more nurses, we need more remote teachers. Why aren't we able to?
Testing.
There's reasons why. And when someone says, well, why is it always about the money? It's because that's how we function. Like, you need to pay people in order to do work.
But it also looks at, when you look at things like athletics, and you see how much they're trying to get athletics on the field, but at the same time, no way are you having the before and after program. I don't see the difference between either one of them. You're gonna have children in close contact after school.
Yeah,
And I just don't see it. If you can play volleyball indoors, I don't know why you can't have an elementary before and after program. It's the-
Now, what kind of financial impact are the sports?
so that's going to have to be determined, because if you can have to restrict the number of, so think about cross country. You have a couple hundred kids. How are you putting them on a bus at 27 kids per bus?
Right.
So that creates a whole situation, and then we start having the conversation, how do we cover those expenses? Are we going to go ahead and say, okay, well, because of COVID, we're gonna have to increase, I'm not proposing this, I'm just saying, would we have to increase the user fee, the athletic fee for each sport, and say, hey, we're gonna have to cover an extraordinary transportation expense? And those are conversations, again, we had them yesterday with Mr. Thornton and Mr. Seymour, and just talked about all options, that if we feel as a district that athletics is safe, maybe there's a way to do it internally, just to make sure students are able to gather and work together. But I tried to think through that in 2 weeks while you're still trying to do our primary goal is to bring the children back into the building. That's what we've been working on for months now. So to have this come up at the 11th hour is a real tall order to try to address.
Just
Does
out
that
of
mean-
curiosity, has the athletic director or the principal at the high school gotten any feedback on what the participation rate may be? Like you said, I get cross country is a big sport, and you guys get on, but I mean,
Yeah,
are the parents thinking like, I'm like, well, mine's sending my kid to school, but I don't want him running around athletically?
Well, I'll say as a high school parent of athletes that we haven't been reached out to at all. And I'm not throwing anyone on the
No,
bus.
I'm
I'm just saying that I don't think that has even come up for parents. I think the majority of parents that I've spoken to and athletes I've spoken to want to play.
Yeah, I've not seen any shortage at any games of student athletes.
And
or
they're out
parents.
there at
And
club sports and AAUs and.
for all,
Anyway,
and for all the reasons we can anticipate, right? We should expect it's that student athletes have not been around groups. They've not been able to see their friends. They've not been able to see their teammates. So when an opportunity presents itself in the summer to do a traveling team, there is not a problem filling those numbers. And when you reduce the number of sports in the fall, like we would be,
The greater number of
this is
children.
going to be a much larger number. So golf, could see record numbers. You could see same thing for cross-country. It's,
Yeah.
and then you have to supervise that, keep everybody 6 feet apart.
I was almost kind of hoping the answer was the other way, because now I'm saying, okay, now you've got an away meet. I'm not sure we could get enough buses to put the kids on for an away meet.
But then that
Because they don't-
depends
I
if
just
there's
don't think they're
another
available.
district who's playing sports too.
Yeah, we don't know if the other districts are going to be around to be able to play.
We'd also have to have the same transportation vendors, they create the capacity.
Puts a
Share
lot
the
of
buses.
pressure, puts a lot of pressure on the coaches, and I'm thinking of the large numbers in cross-country, that you're only going to take, you're going to end up taking your top cross-country students, and the other ones that aren't running as fast or as well are practicing every day, but we don't know, we can't make any guarantee, I can't see that anybody's going to make any guarantees, but that's a tough call for a coach.
It's very tough.
who's trying
What
to-
about percentages of kids that are going out remote? And how does that percentage feed into the athletics that we offer?
So you're asking of the 15% of students that are decided, the families that opted for remote, how does that relate to athletics?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a high school, the percentage of high school students was small.
Percent of high school.
Percentage of high school students that
Remote
fully remote.
Oh,
And
yeah,
Android freeways.
yeah, it's pretty,
It was,
it's under 10%.
yeah, it was,
Well under, actually.
it was a very small percentage. So of the people wanting remote, it was less than 10% of those that were going to go fully remote in high school.
Okay.
So I mean, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd just like to thank everybody for their continued patience, and I'd like to thank especially, I know last week we got out schedules and principals sent out messages. Just know that, you know, your building administrators continue to work really hard with the teachers and just, and the custodians, and just trying to get everything ready for your children to come back to school. It's every day brings new challenges, but they've been doing what they can to get up there and meet them.
Thank you very much,
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Big. Okay, now we are going to go into executive session. So this ends the public portion of our meeting. We're going into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declared.
Move executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote. Joanna?
Yes.
Lisa? Emily?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Marie?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Dina? Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.